The Republican race for the presidential nomination looking more like a game of chess between Ted Cruz and Donald Trump. Cruz is playing the long game, looking to states where the delegate rules and demographics tilt in his favor. So instead of focusing on New York, where the polls show him far behind Donald Trump, Cruz is looking ahead to states out west and courting voters and power brokers there. An article in the Washington Post explains Cruz's strategy, writing, quote, "He is effectively creating his own primary calendar, map, and electorate in hopes of cobbling together enough support to prevent frontrunner Donald Trump from clinching the nomination outright." Let's bring in radio host and Fox News contributor Leslie Marshall and syndicated radio host for Compass Media Network, Lars Larson. Lars, you heard the proposal there in that Washington Post piece, the way it was outlined. Can it work?
Well, I hate to let math get in the way of a good theory like that, but we all know that Senator Cruz is going to have to close about 88% of the remaining delegates, and that just isn't mathematically likely. I'm inclined to use a sports analogy, but it's not going to be there. So effectively, Senator Cruz will play exactly the role that the establishment GOP wants him to play. Spoiler to Donald Trump, since the establishment doesn't like either one of them. Now, you know I'm a Trump proponent, but Trump is going to do very well in the colonies. Once again, America's colonies in the upper Northeast are going to save the day. Look at the numbers in Maryland, where Cruz is running third in the race. He's down in the teens, and Trump is going to do very, very well. I don't think Senator Cruz is going to be able to get past that, and all he manages to do, if he does it, is prevent Trump from arriving with 1237 this summer.
In our first hour, Leslie, we showed a poll that has Trump up by 13 points over Ted Cruz among likely Republican voters, but the margin is shrinking. He's dropped about 7 points over the last month. Can he pull off, that is, can Donald Trump's campaign pull off the 1,237 delegates they're going to need to win the nomination?
I don't know, especially with the strategy of Ted Cruz and his campaign and the experience this guy has as a politician. You know, Donald Trump said this is a rigged system, and quite frankly, it is in a sense. I mean, it is, like Lars said, a numbers game. So if you can't beat him, try and block him to push for a brokered convention. Sorry for all the B's there, guys. But with Ted Cruz, he has, he's an intelligent guy. He has a very strong, knowledgeable campaign, and as a politician, a great handle on the process. And quite frankly, that could put him in a position not to beat Donald Trump, but to block Donald Trump from getting the number, the magic number he needs to be the Republican nominee. So I think Ted Cruz is not only doing the only thing he can do at this point, but I think it's a smart strategy, because I just don't see the Trump campaign as knowledgeable with this process that is, in a sense, rigged.
You know, John, I got to tell you, I think it's a foolish strategy, because here are two of the canards that we've run into in this campaign. Number one, that Cruz is anti-establishment. This guy went to Princeton and Harvard Law School, worked at the White House, FTC, Solicitor General, and all the rest of that. He's about as establishment as they come. Only in the last few years as a senator, his speeches indicate he's anti-establishment. And yet he's playing the pawn to the establishment GOP. He's blocking the guy the establishment hates the most, Trump, but that doesn't mean he's going to get the nomination either. Yeah. So both of them will get thrown off the stage. So Trump only succeeds in helping the establishment that he supposedly opposes.
Trump obviously is expected to do well in New York, his home state. Here's what that Washington Post article goes on to say about Cruz's hopes to use another large state to block him. The Cruz campaign believes it can energize a Republican base in a state, California, that hasn't had a leading voice in the GOP presidential primary in decades. What about that, Leslie? Can California do for Ted Cruz what Donald Trump expects to do with New York?
I don't think that Ted Cruz is going to get in California what Donald Trump will get numbers-wise and percentage-wise in the great Empire State. But it's interesting that in a primary, the state that I'm living in, Cali, would play such a pivotal role. Yeah. And this is not just on the Republican side, but on the Democratic side as well. Although California is a very blue state, a very liberal state, there are some huge conservative pockets of the state, especially when you look to Sacramento and to San Diego, north and south of me. And, you know, Ted Cruz does can have some gain there, but Republicans in this state tend to be more moderate, and I feel not just with the numbers in the polls, but just in the people I talk to here that are Republicans, they're more apt to go for a Trump than a Ted Cruz, especially, because he's definitely more conservative with the evangelical base. You don't have as large an evangelical community base in the Republican Party here in California.
One of Donald Trump's top political operatives in D.C., Lars, maybe you've spoken to him, Ed Brookover, says that he sees his guy gliding to the nomination. Listen to this.
I don't see how we don't do very well in New York. I don't see how we don't do very well the next week. I think we're on a glide path. We have to work hard. We have to talk to the voters. But I think it's a path which has very few obstacles to us winning on the first ballot.
Is that optimistic? A glide path to the nomination, Lars?
I don't know that it's a glide path, and usually my rule is under-promise and over-deliver, although with Trump the rule may not exactly work because that's not his style. I think he's going to do very well in New York and in California, and my friend Leslie Marshall, I think, undersells her state's conservatism. I might point out in the last decade, Californians have voted against gay marriage and in favor of the death penalty, so if that's her version of liberal state or blue state, I don't get it.
All right, we'll see what happens. It's going to be a fascinating couple of weeks. Leslie Marshall, Lars Larson, thank you both.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.